Well, I put in the driver's side rear quarter panel trim. It went in without incident, just using the techniques that I found yesterday on the passenger side, namely taking that top panel off so that it would slip in directly. So now we're on to the frame for the doors for the storage compartments, and on the side where the battery is, there's 4 screws, 2 in the front and 2 on the side, that are still in there because there's a foam pad under there. No such pad exists on the other side. There are no screws that hold it down in the center compartment. So there's 4 here, and then the ones that hold this side down are on the back. They go through the wall into the fiberglass. So I'm going to have to find which screws belong to that. But in the meantime, I'm going to try to fit this in place. And I don't think I'm going to try to record it because I think it's going to be tough to get the camera in without me blocking it. So I'll show you the finished results. The frame for the storage compartment doors is in. Took a lot of effort to compress the carpet so that it sat down where the holes were in the body. The one thing that you do have to make sure that you've got the screws in the back in far enough so that when you put this down, it will actually be level and close, because they were out a little bit and this was sticking up, so I had to tighten them some more. But I think they'll work now, and if they're not in tight enough, I'll just tighten them a little further. So that's it for the storage compartments for now, other than, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the frames around the lids, I went and I got number 6 screws and number 8 screws, and the heads of those are just a little bit too big, so I'm going to get a number 4 screw and try that, because I don't want the head sticking out further than that plastic frame. So there I have an elaborate way to clamp my lids for my storage compartment into my vise by adding a 1x1 piece of hardwood where I have these clamps clamping it down to compress the carpet, and I've drilled a 3/32 hole in the edge so that it fits a number 4 bevel-headed screw. I tried a number 6, and a number 6 was really almost perfect for that, but my point was, if I didn't get those 100% straight, they were going to be cockeyed and possibly stick out and have a sharp edge. So I got the number 4, which screws in a little bit deeper, and I can use that I might need to get a different screwdriver because this one, yeah, I think that's a number 2 Phillips, is too small to get into that head, or too large to get into that head. That was a P2 screwdriver, and a P1 fits it perfectly. So I'm going to zoom in on where I'm actually putting this screw. And now the camera doesn't want to focus on that. Okay. So basically, what I'm going to do is screw this in so that it's below the plastic frame. Interesting, that doesn't want to go in. I think what I have to do is drill that all the way through. Or at least to a depth of a ½ inch. Okay, that's all the way through. Yeah, that's biting into the sides of the holes, but the tip wouldn't go through the, I guess it's fiberglass. Now, I don't want to tighten this too tight, because if I get it too tight, I'm going to crack the frame. So I'm just going to get it to where it's holding. And it's below the surface of the frame. Now I'll go around and do that. There's 8 holes on each piece, and I'll clamp the sides when I get to them. I better zoom out because show you what I'm looking at. Actually, I don't have to zoom out, but see how this is a big gap here in the center? I'm going to have to clamp that down on those sides to do it, so that the carpeting is compressed under the frame. So I'll do that to all of the lids. So there's the edge of the finished one. What I did is I took my Red Magic marker, permanent magic marker, and just coated the ends of the screws with red so that they're less visible. And before I go install this in the car, which I'm not going to video because it's just these 3 screws, I will make the comment that I had to grind the back end of those screws off because they left a sharp edge. So a 3/8 number 4 might be better if you are absolutely certain you can drill those things perfectly, and that means perfectly centered and perfectly aligned front to back and up and down so that the head isn't visible above here. You can go with a number 6, but I'm not that good, so a number 8 or number 4 is what I need. So if you've been watching along, you know that there was cracks in a couple of those frames, and they were like $50 to buy a new one, new set, I should say. So I tried to put them on as good as I can, and that's the finished product. I'll zoom in on the crack and then I'll tell you what it is that I did. There was a gap of about 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch there. And since I want this car as a driver, not a show car, I'm good with that repair. What I did, cotton ball, Gorilla Glue, stuffed the cotton ball in there, got it pretty much level with the area I wanted to fill. Took my red magic marker, permanent magic marker, and coated it with the red, and then I put Gorilla Glue on top of it and let it dry. So since that's going to be behind the seat anyway, I'm not too concerned. That looks good enough for me. I didn't want to spend $50 on plastic frames that might not fit any better, and so that's what it is. I'm going to try to show you what that process looks like. I've got a little piece of cotton ball that I ripped off, and I have a little carving set from Harbor Freight. Hope you could see that. I'm just using that to press the cotton down into the gap. And I worked on one side first and then the other, like this level, then this surface before, because I felt that I could get one part of it glued in and then it would hold it somewhat while I pushed and trimmed the other cotton in. I just take a few drops of Gorilla Glue or any of the super glues that you have. Just kind of saturate the cotton that's in there. Again, smoothing it out with the carving set. And I'll give that several minutes to dry, and then I'll go over it again with this. Well, forgot to turn the camera back on as I was stuffing the cotton in the other side of the gap. In the meantime, while that was drying, and that's why I got distracted, I went over and did the crack on the other side of this piece of frame. So, I'm gonna make it red. Go over the red on the part that I glued already. Makes it a little bit darker. By the way, any kind of super glue will kind of work on this. And I think some of the others will work better than this Gorilla Glue. This is kind of heavier consistency, so when you are putting it on, it doesn't flow into the cotton as well as it could, but the other flows in better. You have to kind of work this in a little bit. Gotta make sure I'm in the frame because I moved that. I had some of the other stuff around here, but I couldn't find it. And this was a brand new bottle of Gorilla Glue, so I used it. The super glue wipes off of the metal pretty easily, and I'm just going to try to snip some cotton threads here. Who knows, after it dries, maybe I'll just take a flame to it like I did the carpet fibers. Right now that clamp I've got on there is in the way. So basically that's pretty much it. I've got to finish the upper where is it? Right there. So sitting in the back of the car, I'm sure that you know, it won't be in the bright sunlight. You won't be able to see it, be in the shadows, and anybody that looks at it will just glance in it because I'm not having this thing judged. I wouldn't do this if I was. This place here was cracked right at a screw hole, so I had to put 2 screws in. And this part of it sits down in the frame in the back. So again, nobody will ever see it. It does help if you have a color of a car that comes, that you can get a good marker that's close to the color. Make sure your hole is clear before you recap this. I'll just smooth that out and it'll be done. So there's my storage compartment lids all ready to be installed. And one of the things that I noticed when I was taking that whole thing out, is that there were two liners similar to this in there. And the one, you could just pull it out. That was the one that covers the jack. And it makes sense that you have to be able to pull that out to get the jack out. But then there was this one that was under that. And if you notice, this is much bigger than that. So this should have been put in before the frame. Well, I didn't do that, and I don't feel like taking the whole frame out. And I think there's a good reason not to put this under the frame, and that being, I don't have the console in yet. And the problem with that is there's a screw that goes from the front of this compartment into the console to hold it in. And if I put in the liner for this underneath that frame before I put the console in, I can't get that bolt in the back of the console. And thinking about it, I feel like there's a good reason, in my mind anyway, for me to modify either that liner that goes under this, or to build a new one that fits under this without having to take all that frame out, because it's a 48-year-old car, and in that piece of console that is screwed in under there are the 2 power window switches, and those could go bad. So I want to be able to take the console out without taking the entire assembly for this out of the car. So when I stick those in, they're going in without those liners. Well, the one liner that inserts from the top that covers the jack, I'll put in. But at some time in the future, I'll either modify that or I'll build a new one to fit in that compartment without taking everything apart. Because that's a lot of work to get the extra work just to get a power window switch changed. Okay, I'm going to put the doors on the storage cabinets. There's 3 of them. I probably will only show one because they're basically going to be all the same. Before I do that, the one that has the jack storage compartment has this liner that goes in it. And you can tell how it fits because one of the corners, as is the case on the frame of the door, is rounded, and it just drops down in there. And of course it doesn't want to go all the way. I have to see if I got something in the way there. Don't think I do. Okay. You have to flip the hinge up so that it goes in. But I didn't bring that door with me. I brought this one. I'm going to put it on first. a sticker here on the bottom of the door. It's kind of for a battery warranty. Was installed in 1980, so I think it's pretty much done, out of warranty, no longer with the car. If you've been following along, you recall that the middle compartment has a liner in it so you can store stuff. It was originally designed to go underneath the frame, but I'm not doing it that way because you have to take that out in order to get at the screw that bolts into the console from the back. And that as I have said, it's almost a 50-year-old car with presumably 50-year-old or almost 50 years old, 48 switches for the power windows, and those are likely to fail at some point. And I don't want to have to take the entire that needs to be adjusted a little bit. I don't want to take this entire frame out with all these compartment doors, etc. In order to remove that console, what you have to do to get that switch out. Still needs a little adjustment. What I should do before I do that. I didn't finish tightening down all these bolts that are holding the frame over here. So there's 4 screws on this edge of the frame that I didn't tighten. So I'm going to shut the camera off and tighten those because they might be causing this not to line up. But basically, I will tighten those down, and then I'll shift that door one way or another until it lines up. And then I'll tighten those screws down good. So I'm not going to video that. That's pretty simple. So there's one more piece of trim to go in the back, and that's the trim around the bottom of the rear window. It's got 3 screws to it, and there is an upside down to it or right side up. So you just have to make sure it lines up with the 2 ends on the quarter panel trim. At least I'll call it the quarter panel trim. I don't know what it's called. But as I said, this lines up with 3 screws. loosened, and as a lot of things are. The place where these screw into do swivel a little bit, so there is some alignment that can be had. What I'm doing is I'm moving the piece in the back that this screws into to try to get it lined up with my fingers. That one started. Center one started. So these are actually pretty hard to turn. The screws, so once I get them started, I'm gonna get my little driver and get some assist on the, and miss the tab with the hole in it, the screw hole in it completely on that one. Okay, got it lined up. I'm not going to use the driver on that. Two more screws to tighten and that'll be done. I'm going to shut off the camera. And that finishes it up for the back. Now, this one tray, the cover above the battery compartment, that thing's a little bit out of alignment, but I knew that was likely to happen. And I'm okay with it because I ran the cord for the battery tender underneath it. And I knew it wouldn't sit down all the way, the frame wouldn't sit down all the way. So it is pretty close, and I'm just going to leave it that way because I value the convenience of getting to that battery tender wire more than I value that tray cover sitting 100% accurate. So at any rate, like I said, I'm going to finish up the couple screws on that back piece, and then we'll go on to the next step, which is going to be installing the console.